Football Friday brought to you by Elite Lawns. No mud, no mowing, no mess.
Hi, good evening and welcome to another edition of Football Friday here at Bay TV. Our weekly look at the antics of professional footballers locally and internationally. I think last week, guys, Gary Gillespie, Graeme Sharp with me obviously. Last week we started with Raheem Sterling and we have to start with Raheem Sterling yet again because he's in a slow news week. He's the man again. What's your take on the latest revelations about his private life?
I just think it's unfortunate, isn't it, that he's making headlines for all the wrong reasons. We'd much rather him be on the back pages as opposed to the front pages. I think when you look at it and break it down, you know, he hasn't done an awful lot wrong in my eyes, to be honest with you. It's another prime example of British media or English media, you know, building a kid up to be what he is and or suggest what he can be or what he is at this moment in time, and then just for whatever reason seems to be knocking him down. You know, I don't condone what he's actually done. It's not something that I would be like associated with. But in saying that, you know, he without sin, let him cast the first stone. I mean, both myself and Sharpie have been young players at big football clubs. We haven't been, you know, saints for the whole of our career. So we have been there. We've done that. It's just a shame that, you know, I think when you're young and you're impressionable, you have to be careful who your circle of friends are. Yeah. And I think the big thing that come out of this is probably more the company that he is actually keeping. I mean, if I'd been with a crowd of friends, I mean, there's no way my mates would have like put a video or a photograph or something like that on social media or wherever it was put. I just think that he has to look at his friends closely and be very selective in who you actually are friendly with.
I mean, the timing's bad, bearing in mind the problems he's had with negotiating the new contract. And at precisely the wrong moment, he's pictured with a shishi pipe and then with laughing gas.
But that seems like an agenda against him, isn't it? You know, and you quite rightly said at the beginning, Ian, about, you know, it's been a quiet news week, you know, something, and that's going to fill the front pages, not just the back pages. But listen, he's a young boy. Everybody makes mistakes, as Gary says. It's just unfortunate at this instance that, you know, it's on the front pages. Listen, I know he's in a privileged position. He gets paid well. He's got to look after himself, look after his body. He's a kid at the end of the day, you know, and these are things that kids are doing. We don't, as Gary said, we don't condone it. But I just think at this moment in time, as Gary says, there's an agenda against him. And, you know, friends wanting to cash in on them, you know, as you quite rightly said, you need to pick your friends better.
I was going to say, when I worked at Everton, I sat with Wayne Rooney when he was 17 and pre-warned him about what would happen. And I told him, you will get stitched up. If you do get stitched up, it will be somebody very close to you because they're the ones who have access to the stuff that newspapers want. And you're right, it's one of his friends who's cashed in here.
Exactly, but again, it's kids learn by their mistakes. You know, when you look at Wayne Rooney all those years ago, and it doesn't matter what you said to him, he was going to do that because that's what young kids do. You know, so all the advisors or whoever talking to Raheem Sterling, don't do this, don't do that. He makes his decision at the end. He's a kid grown up. He'll learn by his mistakes, hopefully. But every kid will go through the same process. He'll do something that his mates are doing, and he doesn't see that as anything bad. But the way people are reacting on it now, you know, they're caning him a little bit.
I think the big thing is that you learn from your mistakes. I remember being a young kid at Coventry, and I broke through into the first team at Coventry very young. I mean, I was 18 years of age playing in English First Division. First 15 games of that season, you think you've arrived, you can do anything, you can get away with anything. And I was quite fortunate that I had older friends that I associated with. And I soon realised that, you know, the things that I was doing, I was going out too often, I was drinking maybe too much. And the penny soon drops, and your friends put like point and say, look, you know, to perform how you need to perform, you can't be doing this. And it was like, probably for the first 2 years at Coventry, I wouldn't say I was a rebel, but I wasn't doing the things that I should have been doing as a young professional footballer. But that's you quickly soon realise that you can't burn the candle at both ends, and you have to be. There's no reason why you can't go out and enjoy yourself, because, as I say, you are young. You still have to, have a life outside of football, and you still have to enjoy yourself. But there's a line that you can't cross, and maybe Raheem's crossed that line a little bit. But as I say, it's a learning curve, and I'm sure he'll learn from it.
I mean, you've been in dressing rooms as senior pros. Do the senior pros talk to the younger ones and say, "Oh, by the way, a bit of advice here, son, as you just said, I was young once and I made mistakes"?
I think the senior pros will have a word, but I think in this day and age, they're their own men, really, aren't they? And he's got his advisors and he's got his friends. Listen, don't get me wrong, I remember somebody telling me a story about a young player going down to the Arsenal dressing room, and as Gary said, thought it was Jack the Lad, everything else, and in that Arsenal dressing room there was Henry and Petit and Vieira, and they had a word and just said, listen, we don't do this here. We make sure we do the things properly. So I'm sure in the Liverpool dressing, the senior players will be having a word with them as well.
Senior players don't always have to have a word with you. It's how the senior players look after themselves, and you learn by example, really. I think I go back to the time when I moved to Liverpool. It was a massive step from Coventry, and even playing in the first division for Coventry as it was, still a massive step up to move to Liverpool. And you go in that dressing room like the Souness, the Dalglishis, the Hansons of this world, the Phil Neals of this world. They led by example. They didn't really have to have too much to say to you, because you just looked up to them and you thought, well, they're obviously doing the things right. They've had a good long career, the amount of medals and championships they've won. They're obviously doing something right. So you look at them and say, well, that's probably how I should be approaching the way that I should be living my life.
How do you think Liverpool have handled it as a club?
I think they've done exactly the right thing. I think as a manager, what does Brendan Rodgers say? He can only come out, defend his player to a certain extent, but castigate him as well. And I think that's exactly what he's done. He'll put an arm around them and say, look, that's not the kind of behaviour that we expect of a young professional footballer at this football club. We want to be ultra professional. And I think he's done exactly the right thing. Listen, he's done nothing wrong in the eyes of the law. So,
He's been stupid more than
he's been daft,
But he's just doing what young
kid,
kids do at that age. He's in a privileged position. He's a footballer, and you talk about all the health reasons and everything why he shouldn't be doing it. But who hasn't been there? In our time, it was having a drink. In our time, but now it's moved on to shisha pipes and whatever you want to call them, and whatever he's up to. That's what the young kids do nowadays. We're not condoning it by any means, but
go down London, walk down Edgware Road. Anywhere along Edgware Road, you'll see them sitting outside, like all the Turkish and people like that, smoking shisha pipes. I don't even know if it does you any harm whatsoever. Laughing gas might be a little bit, a little bit more severe, but
could do with some of that good.
But even there's still players in this day and age who smoke.
Absolutely.
Smoke, but it's big news to have a young player sitting behind a shisha pipe. That's big news. That's front page headlines. Whereas that's not doing them any more harm than people who are smoking.
I would ask them out there, is it coincidental that he's been in the headlines for not signing a £100,000 or £150,000 contract, and then all of a sudden, the week after or a couple of days after.
It's like we said, he's the story at the moment, and whatever. If he walked across the street, jaywalking, he'd be on the front page at the moment. That's his problem. Sterling, of course, has been this week nominated in the PFA for the Young Player of the Year. I think that the nominees are pretty much as we discussed, I think, last week. Who do you think is going to win it? The main one, you've got a crossover here. You've got three who are in both sections, incling Philippe Coutinho, who I think has got a pretty fair shout, certainly for the young player.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, he's 24. I'm not sure that qualifies as young.
No, but I'm just interested. It'd be interesting to see how many goalkeepers have won it in the past, and we've got Courtois in there, haven't we? De Gea in there as well.
I think Neville Southall was the last goalkeeper
was
to
it?
win it.
Maybe right.
And that'll be 30 years ago.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one. De Gea's been outstanding for Manchester United this year, but for me, I still think Hazard. I think Hazard's the one has got everybody in. And I think I'm just saying to Gary before we came on here, I've been really impressed with Coutinho. I think he's a fabulous player. Does he deserve this at this stage? I'm not too sure. I think Hazard for me is probably going to pip it.
Traditionally, they would pick somebody from the champions, and the champions elected Chelsea. Hazard will be a universally acclaimed choice, I think.
I think you want excitement, don't you? You want exciting players, I think, and Hazard certainly fits the bill with that. And as you rightly say, Ian, I think more often than not it comes from the team that wins the Premier League, and it looks like Chelsea will win the Premier League. I think they will, to be honest with you, and I do expect Hazard to be Player of the Year. I think he excites. He's been consistent as well. I think, you know, you maybe put Sanchez in there as well. I mean, Sanchez had a great season for Arsenal. But overall,
great first half of the season.
And that's the point I was going to make. I think overall, I think you have to be consistently good, and I think Hazard has been that. He's been the one Chelsea player that, when they've looked in trouble, I think they can turn to him and he changes games. I said it all along, like about Liverpool. When we were a little bit ordinary, we had so many players of the same kind of ilk. You need one or two players, game-changing players that can change a game. Hazard's one of them, and I think he'll win it. I think Harry Kane will win Young Player of the Year as well.
I think Harry Kane's unfortunate because he's tailed off because Tottenham seem to be trying to avoid qualifying for the Europa League. They seem to have given up.
Yeah, but it's just take nothing away from him. He's had a fantastic season. You know, the goals he scored and his contribution, got an England cap scored there in his debut as well. So he'll probably win the Young Player of the Year, and quite rightly so. But Hazard, for me, as Gary said there, playing for the champions, I think he's nailed on for that. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. De Gea, I think, might push him hard, and it'd be interesting to see if we get another keeper to win it. But for me, Hazard and Kane.
No Everton players, though. Sad.
No, unfortunately, no. As I said last week or the week before about how difficult it was to even pick a player of the season for Everton, you know, within their own club. And you know, obviously, recently, Phil Jagielka has been outstanding, so he's probably leading it from my point of view. But no, there's not been any really outstanding candidates in the Everton team for Player of the Year.
I think Stephen Naismith will probably win Everton's Player of the Year.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I just think for his general demeanour.
Jagielka won't win it, to be honest with you. I'm not.
You think so? Well, you're a centre-back.
No, I think what happens is if you have a tough season and you have a difficult season, more often than not, it's defenders that win Player of the Year.
OK, that's the end of the first part. We'll be back shortly with the small matter of an FA Cup semi-final for Liverpool.
Free lawnmower removal with every grass laid because you'll never have to mow again. Elite Lawns Artificial Grass, landscape partners with Tiger Turf.
Hi and welcome back to Football Friday, and my guest Graeme Sharp, former Everton great, Gary Gillespie, former Liverpool great. Big weekend for Liverpool, Gary, FA Cup semi-final. It's supposed to be a season of disappointment, but Wembley, here they go again.
Yeah, it's massive. I think Brendan said at the beginning of the season that, you know, Liverpool, what they're all about is winning trophies, and he would love to win one. This is a great opportunity. But a good opportunity in the League Cup, getting beat by Chelsea in the semi-final. You don't want to suffer that disappointment twice in a season. So a massive game for them. Have to be favourites going into the game against Aston Villa, albeit Aston Villa have picked up in recent weeks. But you still would fancy Liverpool to get through to the final, and then it's anybody's game, really.
I mean, this is Brendan's third year, and he needs trophies. I think we discussed last week, Americans are notoriously impatient, the owners, and they'll be looking for something, won't they?
Well, I think we mentioned last week as well, I think the fact that, you know, Kenny got Liverpool to Wembley 3 times, beat Everton obviously in the semi-final, sorry, Sharpie. Didn't need to say that.
Okay, mention it again.
I think, but, you know, you win the League Cup and you get beaten the final, the FA Cup final, and that wasn't good enough. So, you know, it's a cutthroat business. It's about results. And Brendan, he'll certainly know that. It doesn't look as if that we'll get to the Champions League positions, I don't think. But we're still in there fighting with a chance. But I think this is the one thing. The fans love semi-finals and they love finals. And that's what it's all about. It's about the day out for the fans, going down to London, enjoying themselves. Albeit I don't think we're, you know, real firm favourites of having the semi-final at Wembley. It gives the fans an occasion to get down to London and enjoy themselves.
Do you think they would take? What would the Liverpool fans look for? Would they rather be top 4? Is this question? Would they rather win the FA Cup or be in the top 4? You know,
I think the finance director at Anfield will prefer a Champions League place.
I think as players, you always played to win things. Didn't you? You always wanted. And the FA Cup in our day was something that you wanted to achieve and win. I'm not sure if it's lost its gloss over the last few years. Everybody knows that. I still think for me it's an important cup competition. And as a supporter, I'd want to, as Gary said, go down to Wembley, you know, sample the atmosphere. Disagree that the semi-final should be at Wembley, but I still think it's a trophy that, that most clubs still want to win.
And Liverpool, you think, should win this game?
I think Liverpool will start favourites. Gary's right. I think that Aston Villa have improved in recent weeks. Benteke's come to some sort of form, scoring goals now. Everybody knows what a handful he can be if he's up for the game. You'd expect him to be up for a semi-final. So that's a danger to Liverpool. But space of Wembley, the way Liverpool play, I'd expect Liverpool to win comfortably. I know I've been saying that recently, said against Newcastle as well, but I'd expect, they've hit a little bit of form, Villa, but I think Liverpool are too good for them.
He's key to them, Benteke. I mean, he has played against Liverpool well on numerous occasions, and I think certainly when he plays, Villa look a different prospect. Agbon Lahore is up front as well. I'm not sure if he's fit or he's actually been playing. So I think when you look at him, he's got that pace to play off Benteke. So they have got threat, Villa, but you just think that Liverpool, if they turn up on the day with with the strongest 11, which hopefully they'll have, then if they play anything where we know that they can play, and as Sharpie says, like with the open spaces at Wembley, the surface at Wembley, you would expect Liverpool to get the result.
There's a section of the Liverpool support who are saying big game, big players. They want Steven Gerrard to play in this game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, that one. I can see where they're coming from. I think he is a big-time player, Steven Gerrard. I think he very seldom lets you down. He very seldom disappoints in big occasions. So maybe Brendan's looking at that and thinking, I mean, where do you play him at the end of the day? I think they've got a formation at this moment in time that kind of suits them. Again, it'll be interesting as well with Skirtle coming back into the lineup, whether they go back to the back three as opposed to what they've been playing recently with the back four. So there is questions and there's team selection problems or team selection issues as opposed to maybe problems. So, the manager will have his work cut out. And probably whatever he does, if he wins the game, he's got it right. If he doesn't win the game, if he doesn't win the game, he's got it wrong.
Skirtle's the big one from coming back as well.
Yeah,
just at that time, especially with Benteke.
They missed him really.
Yeah, they missed him, and he's a physical player as well, and he'll be up for a challenge against Benteke. So that's a bonus for Liverpool having him back.
Now, in Tim Sherwood, Villa would appear to have a new manager who not only wants to be a manager, but wants to be some sort of controversial figure in football. I find him a little difficult to take. I don't know what your view on him is.
I don't like his antics, and sometimes I think his antics are for the camera. Ranting and raving. Everybody can be passionate about football, and people show it in different ways. I might be wrong here, but running up and down the touchline, throwing your coat down every time a decision goes against you, maybe not for me. But listen, you can't argue with him. He done a reasonably good job at Tottenham. He thought he should have got the Tottenham job. I didn't think that was ever going to happen. He's now got himself a job at Aston Villa, which was a big gamble for Villa as well, considering he hadn't had a lot of managerial experience. But if he can win this semi-final, he goes up a little bit.
Keep them up as well.
Yeah. I think a position as a man, you have to have self-belief. I think you look at most of the top man. You look at Mourinho, you look at Van Gaal. I'm not saying Tim Sherwood is anywhere near, in that sort of category just yet, but you have to have that sort of self-belief, and sometimes it might come across as a little bit as arrogance, as Sharpie says, and maybe playing up to the cameras. But I think the position you find yourself in there, I think sometimes that's got to be done. It is a circus. The Premier League is a circus, and managerial roles within the Premier League, it's a circus as well. Because if he ain't doing it, he'll soon be out the door. So
I was going to say, I heard an interview with him last week where he was basically claiming credit for what Tottenham have achieved this season. Now, you can make those claims, but you have to be able to back. If you're going to be arrogant, you have to be able to back it up with accomplishments and feats, don't you?
Well, let's give him time and let's see what he can achieve at Aston Villa.
Don't get time in football.
Well, I know, but when I say time,
another season.
The beginning of next season, probably. I think he's got a massive club there. A massive club at Aston Villa. When you look back in what they've won. Noticeable that he's taken one of our old teammates as well, Kevin McDonald, who's gone as one of his assistants. So I know Kevin quite well, and I know what he's like, and he is a winner. So he'll certainly be doing his homework on Liverpool, and he'll know what Liverpool is all about.
The thing with Villa as well, with Gary's a massive club, but really difficult times for him. So if he can get them to a final, or even keep them up, more importantly, keep them up. I think if you ask Villa fans, the most important thing for them would be Premier League all day long. So if he can keep them in the Premier League, his standing goes up. as a manager, because he took over at a difficult time. Everybody thought Villa were down, you know. So if he can keep them up, and that first and foremost, he'll be saying to his players, semi-final, Liverpool, Wembley, go and enjoy it. Go and enjoy it. But remember, we've got other cup finals after this as well. So
he's in a no-win situation, really, because he's stuck with an owner in Randy Lerner who won't invest any more money. So you suspect that during the summer, if he wants to change the squad, he'll have to sell before he can buy it. And Benteke is the obvious one.
I think, in fairness, though, Ian, most clubs are like that. Apart from maybe Chelsea, excuse me, Man United and City. You know, even maybe Arsenal and like, you know, borderline, but even Liverpool, who are like have been a top club for a long time. I think if you ask Brendan Rodgers if he wants to buy in the summer, he will probably have to sell some of his players as well. So I think most clubs find themselves in that sort of position these days. You have to balance the books somewhere along the line. You went on about it last week, how much Brendan had spent, and I was telling you about the net spend compared to like actually what he had spent. So I think they do try and balance the books, these football clubs these days. And it's not so long ago when, you know, Martin O'Neill was at Aston Villa and he was spending a lot of money with big players, big wages, and that really hurt them. And I think the best they got was 6, I think. In
they had to go for it.
You know, if Tim Sherwood can get Aston Villa anywhere near that top 8, you know, with limited resources, then, you know, he's done a remarkable job.
I suppose Liverpool's problem is if they get through, it looks like they'll probably play Arsenal, the form team in the Premier League.
Well, again, but cup finals. You know, you don't
Can
know.
You're presuming Arsenal will
Yeah,
beat
I think Arsenal beat Reading. Again, how they approach it, you know, everybody expects them to win easily. It won't be easy. But no, Arsenal-Liverpool final, I think, is the one that everybody's looking towards.
That could be a potentially really good game, couldn't
it could be Steven Gerrard's last game. It could be this. It could be that. You know, it's. But again, you've got to get through the semi-finals.
I think anything can happen in FA Cup ties. You know, that's the beauty about the FA Cup. That, you know, I think you look at the game, and the bookies will certainly say that it's an Arsenal-Liverpool final because they'll be firm favourites to go through. I think the sponsors would probably look forward to an Arsenal-Liverpool final as well. So, you know, let's see. But, you know, the cup always has magical things, doesn't it? Like, you know, you look at Steve Clarke, manager at Reading, coming back, managing maybe Reading against Liverpool, if Liverpool to get in there. Steven Gerrard, it's his 35th birthday on the day of the cup final. You know, so all these things like get added into it, and I think that's the beauty and the magic of the FA Cup.
Arsenal for the double then?
No. Chelsea for me. Gary talked about it earlier on. No, Chelsea for me for the league. Arsenal have done really well, and I think
I was actually looking at Arsenal's remaining fixtures, and they've still got to play Chelsea and Man United, and then they've got a raft of home games: Swansea, Sunderland, West Brom, and etc., which they should win comfortably.
They should be, but I think if you're comparing the two, Chelsea have been there before. Arsenal haven't been in that position for a long, long time. I still think Chelsea have got too much know-how and experience, and I think they'll see it out. I personally do. Arsenal have done really well. I think Arsenal have come to the fore because possibly the demise of City. Everybody's talking about Chelsea City before. City have been really, really poor, and Arsenal have just crept up there, and they'll still say they're in with a chance, but I think it's highly unlikely they'll win it.
I think if Chelsea can overcome Man United this weekend, then that might just be it. But Man United are playing well.
Yeah, United are playing exceptionally well. I think, you know, big results and big games. Beat Liverpool, beat Man City. 2 big games for them. So they'll be going into the game bags of confidence. You know, but you tend to think that Mourinho, in these sort of big games, he very, very seldom gets it wrong. He very seldom loses. He'd be happy to go there, to get a 0-0, wouldn't he?
There's a suspicion that people are saying he'll park the bus on his own ground this weekend if he has to make sure he doesn't lose.
Yeah, but I still think that, see with Manchester United doing well, they have done really well, but I still think defensively they can get after them a little bit, and I think the way Chelsea play and the attacking threat that Chelsea have, I think Chelsea will score against Manchester United.
Chelsea have been the best side this season so far, and normally when you look at it, the best side normally wins the Premier League.
OK, we'll be back after this short break when we'll take a look at last weekend's fixtures featuring both Liverpool and Everton.
Free lawnmower removal with every grass laid because you'll never have to mow again. Free lawnmower removal with every grass laid because you'll never have to mow again.
Hi and welcome back. Gentlemen, our 2 teams emerged unscathed from rather less than spectacular games last week. Let's start with Everton. You made the long haul down to Swansea. I'm Bet you were really thrilled to be there.
Yeah, it was. It was Friday night down there. Looking forward to the game, early kick-off. But disappointing the game. I think probably Everton coming away from there thought they should have got the 3 points. It was a game that was there for us to win. Started a little bit shakily. Big boy Gomez up front for them. Tested Tim Howard. It was fortunate for us. He went off with a hamstring after that. Once he went out, they didn't really have any threat. And I thought for long spells of the game we dominated. We got the goal. Aaron Lennon scored, and you're thinking, yeah, this is a good victory down here because Swansea a tough place to go nowadays. And we looked for all the worth that we were going to get the result. And then we have a penalty incident. I think at the end of the day it was a penalty. Seamus Coleman did handball the ball, but I thought there was a little push in the back, and we've seen it given so many times, for the defender. But the referee waved it aside. The referee, but 5-10 minutes before that, had a few decisions that upset the Swansea fans. And I remember saying in commentary, we've got to be careful here because he's going to even things up. And I thought it was a harsh penalty, not for the handball, but I thought there was a foul before it. But I'm sure that Roberto coming back would have said 4 games unbeaten now. Yeah. It's progress. Got a game at home. Next 2 home games, Burnley and Manchester United. So hopefully for him it will finish the season strongly.
I mean, Swansea are not flashy, but they're very well organised, aren't they?
They're good. They're good, and it's a tough place to go to, and the crowd get right behind them. Noisy crowd all the way through. But if you look at the team, John Joe Shelby was probably their star performer, even though he gets substituted near the end. But they didn't really pose a threat, and that's a disappointing thing. Everton had chances. If I was, looking at it and criticising, I'd probably say in that final third again, they just did not take their chances. They just wanted an extra touch on the ball. They just wanted to pass it. James McCarthy had a fantastic opportunity where he's about 18 yards out in the whole middle of the goal. You're saying, shoot, and he tries to pass inside the 18-yard box, and just things like that, so infuriating because we need to score goals. And in the final third, I think that is where we're letting ourselves down. Defensively, we talked about Jagielka being outstanding. Defensively, we were good. It's just in that final third maybe we let ourselves down.
I think that's the core of Everton. I think when they're good defensively, they're difficult to beat. And when you're difficult to beat, you're always in with a shout to get a result. I think sometimes, especially Saturday morning games, early kickoffs, when you've travelled that way, it shouldn't, but it goes a little bit flat. Everybody's just a little bit flat. But both teams, Sharpie was saying off here, that wasn't the best of games, and maybe that was something to do with it, the fact it was an early kickoff. But both teams look well safe now, so not a lot to play for, and sometimes these games can peter out a little bit.
I mean, Lukaku's had some criticism this season from Evertonians, but they don't half miss him when he's not there, because, as you say, the goals dry up, don't they?
It's not just that, he's really our only forward player, and I think we're relying, and that's why talking about, the summer is going to be a big summer for Roberto Martinez. We need support for Lukaku up front. We talk about the Morales situation. Is he going to be here? Is he going to move on? We've got Coney, who's been out for a long, long time with injury, and at this moment in time, I don't think he's up to playing, 90 minutes from the start of a game. He was quiet the other day, so we miss him that much because he is a threat. Listen, we can criticise him about this isn't good enough and that's not good enough, but just before his injury, he was showing signs of getting back to what he does best, and that's running at defenders, getting on their shoulder, running past them. So he's a big miss. Hopefully he's back for the weekend, which is a big bonus for us. But I think in the summer, that is an area where I think the manager has to
Do you think he'll be here after the summer, Sharpie?
I do.
There was a lot of speculation. We talked about it last week about his agent saying that he wouldn't allow, his new agent wouldn't let him sign for Everton. So
I would be surprised, Gary, if he's not here. I really mean that. I think he'll be here. I think he's still early in his development. I still think he's a young lad at 21, still developing. Okay, that doesn't go for anything if somebody offers the money. But no, I think he'll be here next year, hopefully with some backup.
Do you think Aaron Lennon will be still at Goodison next year?
Well, he's doing himself no harm. I think his performances and goals in his last 2 away performances have done the world of good. He's endeared himself to the Everton faithful because he works hard. And everybody says that you should be able to work hard anyway. That's the first and foremost thing you've got to do. But his performances...
Well, we know not all players work hard.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny actually, because if there'd be one criticism I would have said at Aaron Lennon when he was at Tottenham, that he possibly, maybe towards the end, like the time he was at Tottenham, he didn't work hard enough for me. He was kind of like, you know, when he's got the ball, he does a bit, but like off the ball, not great. But you know, that just shows you.
I always thought with Lennon there was no end product.
Final delivery was a problem, but there's a lot of wingers are like a lot of
you
wide
can say a
players.
lot of the Premier League.
That's it. But no, he's got himself into a good run of form at the moment. My only worry, and I'm going back to the dark ages here, we seem to have a lot of small players, you know, and you look in the Premier League now being big and physical, and I think that's another small player. We've got Aaron Lennon, we've got McGeady, we've got Naismith, who's pretty small, we've got Osman, we've got Pienaar. You know, when you're looking at that, and they're all small players. Sometimes, you know, I'll be looking maybe for a more robust player.
That's what they need.
Well,
Somebody like Fellaini.
more robust player, but that's not taking nothing away. Will he be here next year? I think that all depends on the situation with Morales, personally. I think if Morales goes and he's got a year left in his contract, and if they get supposedly 6 million, whatever it is, I think then that they maybe will bring Lennon in to replace Morales.
The problem that they would have if they decide to sign him is dealing with Tottenham. I mean, Daniel Levy is a notoriously difficult man to negotiate with.
Well, usually what Daniel Levy wants for a player, Daniel Levy gets for a player.
Well, he'll either ask for 15 million or he'll want his pick of Everton's better players. That's what he always does.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that I think Aaron Lennon's going to have, because if he goes back to Tottenham, I don't think he's got a future there.
Well, I was going to say as well, you know, and players now, would they see Tottenham, you know, as a force to be reckoned? Would they want to go to Tottenham? I don't. Morales has said he wants to go to a Champions League club. That's not Tottenham. So, you know, it's all right saying that. You know, if you're talking about players who possibly you'd be looking at maybe Coleman or Bartley or something like that. Would they see Tottenham, you know, as a step forward, a progression in their playing career? I'm not so sure.
No. I was going to say Liverpool strolled to a victory over Newcastle, but it was pretty laboured in a way, because I think when the game started, I've never seen a team who looked less at home than Newcastle did at Anfield on Monday night. They just didn't look interested, and yet they could have got something out of the game in the end.
They could have. I think it was comfortable for Liverpool. 2-0 didn't really flatter them. They had umpteen opportunities to score a lot more. Simple opportunities as well, not just half chances, real clear-cut chances. That maybe be a little bit of a concern, but Newcastle were poor at times, but still looked threatening. It sounds daft, but you know, defensively they were all at sea at times. I mean, Liverpool were cutting them open quite easily, but going forward, showed one or two glimpses. Had they done the right thing at the right time, they could easily have scored against Liverpool, and then it might have been a different game. But overall, Liverpool favourites going into the game, and that's how it panned out. They were comfortable in the end. It could have been more. Sterling missed a golden chance at the Cop end. That
scoring so early as they did, everybody thought this is it. They're going to get 4, 5, 6 here.
Yeah, I think possibly one eye on the semi-final at the weekend. They probably just did about enough to get through the game. I was saying to Sharpie as well just before we came on here, the game against Newcastle, and not just the game against Newcastle, but in recent weeks as well, we've been doing difficult things quite well, and the simple things atrociously badly. You know, and that really highlighted it with like Raheem Sterling opportunity at the Cop end. Coutinho was doing some amazing things with his feet, you know, flicks here and flicks there, but then a simple 10-yard pass. To put a player in, he couldn't make that pass, and so you have to get that sort of balance. And it's great, and the fans love all the attraction, like back heels and little nutmegs and beating people in the space of like a square foot. But if it doesn't come to anything, then you're not actually doing that's a show pony, isn't it?
He's a killjoy, isn't he?
No, it is. It's show pony.
He's a defender, Sharpie. That's what they like.
You have to have like end product is about everything, and it doesn't really matter if you like do 16 little pirouettes and a little flick here and that. The end product
sounds like Peter Beagrie to me. That one.
He's right. He's spot on. It's what we love seeing. As he said to Gary as well. I love Coutinho. I love watching him. He's a fabulous player.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, he is fantastic, and he is one of these players that gets people excited and gets people up off their seats and things like that. And you need people like that.
John Carver's got a really thankless task there, hasn't he?
Yeah. I think so. I think, he's caught between the devil and the deep blue sea when he gets offered the job. He certainly wanted the job, but he's got to say he wants the job. But he's in a position come the end of the season, will he still be there? I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. And I think he's put himself in that
Again,
position as being manager.
They're stuck with an owner who doesn't want to invest. I mean, he won't.
Well, he won't. So he
Ashley
wants to
won't.
go to Rangers, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's made a profit, hasn't he?
Ashley won't pay more than 10 million for a player. They just released figures saying they've got 34 million pounds in the bank.
And
the Newcastle fans are saying, well, we'll spend it on players, then, but he won't do it.
I think it was you said last week, the fact that, he's happy with 10th.
Yeah, exactly.
10th, he's happy, and the bonuses are all structured.
And he sells the shirts, etc., etc.
And by all accounts, there's going to be a big demonstration this weekend, isn't it? Like by not turning up at Newcastle.
Which won't work with people like Mike. It just won't work, will it? It never does work, that sort of thing.
It's a shame because of, when you go up there and it's a fantastic atmosphere and everybody lives for Newcastle, and going to the game and everything else. But they're not happy with the fact that they're just content now with finishing the top 10. I think that's wrong. I think what to aim above that.
I think the heady heights that they had with, with Keegan and at that time. I heard somebody talk, I'm not sure who it was, but like they're talking about the city, and the city was, it was buzzing. It was like a totally different atmosphere. And as well as maybe what Pardew did to keep them in, or even when they got to 5th, never quite recreated that kind of atmosphere within the city, and even within the football club.
There could be massive changes there this summer if Ashley decides to go. Then again, he's got to find a buyer, hasn't he? Same as Randy Lerner, same as Bill Kenwright.
And he's not going to give it away, so it's attracting these. It would be attractive to somebody, looking at the club and the stadium and everything else. But is there that many out there? I'm not too sure. Rangers, I'm sure the Rangers fans aren't rubbing their hands wanting, Mike Ashley to come on board at Glasgow Rangers. So it'll be an interesting summer.
OK, we'll be back shortly after this final break when we'll do a roundup, and I'll tell you about the problems I'm having with Wigan Athletics supporters.
Elite Lawns Artificial Grass, landscape partners with Tiger Turf. Football Friday brought to you by Elite Lawns. No mud, no mowing, no mess.
Hi, and welcome back to the final part of Football Friday. Don't forget that you can get in touch with us, as several Wigan fans have, at footballfriday@baytvliverpool.com. Yeah, last week I described Wigan as a rugby league town.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit harsh.
The Wigan Massive, led by one Anthony Siney, have been on to me, pointing out that, in fact, Wigan Athletic get bigger crowds than Wigan Rugby League, which I disputed. I think if they're almost certainly relegated now, aren't they? They're going to go down to the 3rd tier. It'd be interesting to see what crowds they pull in the 3rd tier.
Will be interesting. As I said, I'm with you. I don't agree. I don't know what the crowds are for the Rugby League, but Wigan's crowds aren't great in the Premier League. I think when, I wouldn't say relatively successful, but when they're in thereabouts, Paul Jewell was there, and they were well supported. Okay, it was a big away support at times, but it was decent, But as you say, I think when you go down the leagues, your tendencies do dwindle. I think that will happen with Wigan. I hope it doesn't. But I think it does. Obviously, in the Premier League is the place to be. The Championship, to go out of that as well. They don't want to go back to where they were many years ago and get down the bottom tier.
Springfield Park, they don't want to go back
there. No, they don't want to go down there. But this is it. Whilst it's important that they have gone down, that they get behind the new manager, Gary Caldwell, and try and get them up at the first time of asking.
I think the only consolation for clubs that do slide down from a supporter perspective is that they might actually see some wins and some decent football. And when we're talking about that, we have to get Tranmere in there because Tranmere are now 3 games away from dropping out of the Football League completely. They're now bottom of the 2nd division with 3 games to go.
It's a tough one for them. You look at their games and you think, where's the next win going to come from? They're on a bad run of form, keep losing games week in, week out, and it's difficult. I think when you're as a manager, you're probably thinking well, how do we go about this game? You just got to prepare how you have to prepare for the game. Consequences, I think you've just got to try and put out your mind and think, you can't go into the game thinking if we lose this, that's us doomed. I think you've got to be professional, you've got to prepare right, go into the game. You never know what can happen, but again, we talked about, bookies' favourites, Arsenal and Liverpool. Bookies' favourites to go into the conference is certainly going to be Tranmere, which is a massive shame. But as you said before, winning football matches, people want to come and watch winning football teams. And if you're not winning in a league, in a certain league, and then you start winning in the league below, sometimes your attendances, as daft as it sounds, can improve.
Yeah, if Tranmere drop down, If they drop down, hopefully they don't. But if they drop down, somebody said to midweek saying that there'll be some good games down there. Wrexham are there, Chess are there. Who'll travel and will be decent crowds. I'm just worried that going down non-league, whether the crowds stay there, and I'm not sure. And I think some clubs can keep the support when they drop down, but I'm not sure if Tranmere can keep the support.
I mean, Tranmere's hardcore support is very small, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, if they get an attractive cup tie at Prenton, they get a good crowd. But generally, you're talking, 7,000 or 8,000? And whether you can, and as you say, if they drop out of the league, they may lose 25% of those supporters.
Yeah, but the premise is, though, if you think that, say they stay up this year, and next year is exactly the same, it's turgid performances, it's like, you're battling week in, week out to get a draw or to get a result, and you're down the bottom of the table again. Then flip that to the next season, they go down into the conference, they're winning matches, you're more likely, maybe not on a weekly basis, but maybe just sit and watch and, try and make, they're doing well. No, there's no games on. We'll pop down to Prenton Park and go and watch them.
Yeah, you look at who's down there now as well. We talked about Wrexham Chess. You've got Lincoln. You've got Grimsby. All teams have been in the same situation and who are struggling to get out. So my worry is, if they don't get up, if they go down and they don't get up the first time of asking, they could be in that for a long, long time. To get out of that league, the conference, you need backing. You need backing. You need money. Eastleigh, who have come up into the conference, have been backed by a millionaire, and they're having a right, could go there in the playoff positions at this moment in time. But if you go down, the only way you can go up for me is somebody throwing money at it. It's no guarantee you're going to go up, but gives you a better chance.
And that's unlikely, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It's amazing how the game's changed, isn't it? Because certainly when we were playing, it was a local businessman that had made a few bob, maybe a millionaire. And you look at, that's old English First Division. You look at it now in the Premier League, you have to be like an oligarch or a big...
It's like, Bill Kenwright's always said, it used to be... A millionaire was enough. Now you need a billionaire because you can't turn a club like Everton around being a millionaire.
And that filters right down through all the leagues, and that's the position that the likes of Wigan and Tranmere and teams like that will find themselves in.
Another team entering the final few furlongs of the season in trouble are Burnley, who arrive at Goodison Park this weekend. Yes. It's a strange one, that, because I think most neutral fans and probably a lot of Evertonians would love Burnley to survive.
Well, I think, we shouldn't be surprised at Burnley tomorrow because I think Burnley will come out the traps quickly. I think they want to go out and play. I don't think they're a team that just say, let's sit behind the ball and soak up pressure. I think they will go after Everton from the first whistle. So I think it'll be an exciting game. We will have to be at our best. But they've got some decent performances in them. And I think the manager, Sean Dyche, has got them up for it, so they'll know what they have to do between now and the end of the season in terms of points. And I think them coming to Goodison tomorrow, I think that he'll say, this is a chance for us. Everton haven't been, it hasn't been a stronghold for us, Goodison Park, this season. So he'll be thinking, we can get a result here. But what we mustn't be surprised with is the intensity in which they'll play at. And I think from the first minute, they will be up and at them. Just getting forward. He just wants to score goals, and they'll put us under pressure. So we will have to defend well tomorrow if we're going to get anything out of the game.
I think there will be a lobby of support if they stay up for Sean Dyche to win Manager of the Year.
Well, he's done the thing about. When you look at it, he's not really invested a great deal of money in the squad. The squad that he has, more or less, are the squad that came up. He hasn't spent that much money. The expectation level within the football club, from a chairman point of view, from the fans' point of view, is not high. So it's not difficult. You never hear, like Sean Dyche, as much as Burnley have been struggling all season, you never hear calls for the manager to be sacked, because expectation level is not as great. Like you look at Leicester, they're a prime example. Obviously, expectation level down there must be far greater. Burnley, it'd be great if they could stay in, but it's
Do you think they will?
At this moment in time,
no.
I hope that's the case after the weekend. But no, listen, it's so tight down there. Really, really tight. And
see, I think Hull and Sunderland.
Possibly.
If you look at Hull, I know you shouldn't look at fixtures, but you look at Hull's remaining games and they're horrendous. They really are.
Every one of the teams down there must be thinking, where are we going to pick up points? So I think we'll pick up points here. And it's a really dangerous situation to be in. You can't look too far ahead. You've got to just say, let's concentrate.
Well,
on
I
this
think
one.
when you talk about these fixtures, Ian, I think when you look at last season, Norwich had something similar, didn't they? They had like all the top sides to play in the last 5 games or something like that. And you know, Hull can easily get like sucked down. And
Well, Tony Pulis is warning West Brom now that they're still not clear because they've faltered. And even John Carver at Newcastle was saying that they need another win or another draw at least.
I think they.
I'm sure they're safe.
I think they're
but
safe. Yeah.
It's sometimes it works that way, doesn't it? Like come the end of the season, the excitement is probably more down the bottom end of the table.
Oh, it's
maybe
fascinating.
what it is at the
I
top
find
end
it
of the
absolutely
table,
fascinating.
Last day scenario maybe.
It could be. We had the Champions League quarter-final first legs this week. Who's going to get through to the semis then? I bet you both picked the same four.
Barcelona all day. I thought Barcelona and Suarez in particular was fantastic the other night. I thought he made a mug of David Luiz, who was 50 million, not making him all the time, scored 2 great goals. Barcelona for me, 3-1 up from the first leg. I think they're through, definitely. Real Madrid, Atletico.
It's in the balance, that one.
Yeah.
I watched that game, man.
I thought it was a good game.
It was a good derby, wasn't it? It was a typical good derby game when it was like blood and everything.
Yeah, it was.
Which you don't often see, like you don't expect in Spain, but yeah.
Probably thought Real were the better team on the night, but going back to the Bernabeu, I can see Atletico Madrid doing
They've got
something.
a good record there, haven't they?
I can
not
see
a
them
bad
doing
team.
something, yeah.
Bayern Munich was a bit of a shock, losing 3-1 at Porto.
Yeah, big shock.
Especially with the second legs coming a week after the first.
Yeah.
And they'll still be without Ribéry, won't they? He won't be playing. And Robbins won't be playing either, I don't think.
But they'll still see a 2-0 is enough to get them through, and they're more than capable of getting
So
that.
give me the four then.
I think Barcelona, Real. Come on, guys, you have the other two.
Don't know who the other two are.
Porto, Bayern Munich. I
Porto,
would say.
Bayern Munich.
I think
Bayern
Bayern Munich. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Bayern Munich. And
And Juventus and Monaco.
Monaco, I'll go Juventus.
Juventus.
Although Monaco played really well in that first leg, and Juventus are only 1 goal up going into the second leg. Aren't they?
As much, funny, isn't it? Like, I mean, when you think about it, as much as we love the Champions League, as soon as like English teams go out, from my point of view, you kind of lose. I'm not saying lose interest because it's still you still like the likes of Barcelona and Real. You've got big, massive clubs there, but it's not the same. It's just not quite the same, is it?
It's not the same.
And those ones I said: Barca, Real Madrid, Juventus, and Bayern Munich. 4 massive clubs.
Okay, we'll stick with that. Okay, thank you very much indeed for watching. That's the end of another show. My thanks to Graeme Sharp and Gary Gillespie for joining us. Have a very good weekend, and hopefully you'll be back to watch us and join us again next Friday.
Safe for the family, including the dog. Football Friday, brought to you by Elite Lawns.